Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hello.
All right, I think we have probably enough people here to start, and then maybe some more folks will trickle in. I put the meeting notes in the chat. I'm going to drop them in again for anyone that joined after that. And I will go ahead and read our lovely intro script. All right. Hello, everyone. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and posted to LFX and YouTube shortly after. Your participation in these meetings is in agreement to abide by the Cloud Native Code of Conduct, which can be found in, I believe, the TOC repo. And I need at least one person to volunteer as scribe. Is there anyone who can scribe today?
I can help out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And what is the rest of this? All right. For new members, I don't see anybody that is new. Is there anyone who wants to reintroduce themselves today? Cool. I think we can just get started. We don't have a community demo today. John, I thought from the last meeting I read that we wanted to talk about the CVE AI working group topic. Am I right, or was that going to be scheduled for something different?
Yeah, I think we can chat about it today.
Cool.
And we I think we had like 5 minutes at the end of the last meeting to just kind of bring it up. So the gen let me share a couple links. Mostly this is that we have a couple of best practices and I think a template. And I will confess, I have not thoroughly reviewed each of these before this call right now. So the the AI technical community group had some questions just in understanding the basics of CVEs. And so Emily Fox wrote up, sort of a brief explainer to them about just understanding what a CVE is, how vulnerabilities work with, numbering authorities and things like that. And so we have guidance around some of the best practices that you should have. And there's a section as well about um, vulnerability reports, about, I think, reporting and responding to each of these. We don't have, and I know, Brant, this is something we've chatted about before, detailed guidance on how to actually triage a vulnerability. Like, should this be a critical vulnerability? Should this be a medium? Like, how do you figure out the severity? Um, how do you respond to somebody and say, no, this isn't a vulnerability at all? So I'm rambling now, and I should work on decomposing these into more concrete thought processes. I think one opportunity is to try and give guidance kind of on that level around how to actually triage vulnerabilities. The other is which pieces of the guidance we have here should be updated when considering artificial intelligence. And I think there's multiple angles to this. One is, should we have guidance around the security implications of using AI coding assistance in writing code for projects, whether that's from random upstream contributors or core maintainers? The other is is there a different way in which you should respond to vulnerability disclosures that are AI generated? We've seen things like um, the curl project stop offering bug bounties because they just were getting way too much AI slop. Um, and I thought there was a third one, but I'm forgetting. Maybe it's using AI to respond to vulnerabilities. Disclosures, but that doesn't seem quite right. So anyways, I will stop talking now. If folks have either more knowledge on the history of either of these documents or specific thoughts about, the gaps or areas that they would like to see addressed. So, Mike?
Yeah. Uh, I don't know about the history of that particular document. However, as far as like, I think the things that are interesting to me, at least about the AI stuff, and this is something that's come up before in some recent conversations, was a few folks, and including myself, like were chatting offline, and one of the things we noticed was like, hey, this is like back in the day with stuff like fuzzing, right? Back in the day, people ran fuzzing and immediately a million things came out of like, hey, there's this issue, there's that issue, there's a million issues everywhere. And then, but when you start to actually narrow it down, you realize actually there's only a handful of things that are worth looking at. And there's two problems I think that kind of highlights. One is, to some extent, we're all learning how to use these new tools in the right way. But I think the other thing that this does, which is like, we've seen this for decades, is it's not necessarily that like AI vulnerability stuff is bad. It's that right now, people are putting, like, not people, certain actors are putting in the most minimal amount of effort to try and just throw stuff out there and hope it works. And this is like, back in the day when people used to do the same thing with like automated tests. It's like, just throw a million automated tests and call it a day, as opposed to saying, hey, let's look at how do we test? How do we run these things? So my point anyway being is I think we could probably take similar sort of guidance, again, that folks had said for fuzzing and all the other things in the past and say, hey, we should be approaching this the same way we approach all these other things. And the reason why we're seeing all these problems now is, one is the immaturity of the tools in the space, and two is the laziness of a lot of these actors who, for them, this is more of how do I make a name for myself? Let me throw a thing out there, and maybe a couple of folks who are misusing a tool and think that they're doing the right thing. But for me, at least, I think the thing I would love to see also, if there is guidance, is how can folks generate like a specific thing that I know I'm very interested in is how can we be using some of these AI tools to not just say, hey, I think I found a vulnerability, but here is how it gets replicated. Here is how we actually prove that it is there. Because right now, a lot of the AI tools are really super, like they're just kind of coming in and saying, I found a remote code execution attack, I found a vulnerability in this space or that space, and then it just calls it a day, and then somebody opens it up and you end up with the curl situation of somebody says, how do I replicate this? Oh, I don't know. and and then it just becomes a waste of everybody's time versus, hey, here is an actual script that replicated it. I ran it and I can see that it actually is an issue. Please take a look.
Yeah, I want to slightly piggyback on that and just say that um, we did a bunch of stuff with the reproducible builds project where we found a bunch of issues and then um, helped, like, tried to have the students go and get them fixed upstream. And finding the issues, we basically took a class period and pretty much everybody had an issue or two that they had found and been able to replicate and describe. But actually getting stuff merged upstream was very hard. And it required a lot of communication and patience and understanding of things and stuff like that. And I'll even say that as someone who I'm sure a lot of us have been on the receiving end of a lot of these, replicating is good, but it's often misses the point because, yes, you showed that, someone with root access who can overwrite files on parts of the file system can mess with tough metadata on the local system and can cause the tough client to then install things it shouldn't. But if you have root access on the local file system and can overwrite like the tough software itself, then like, okay, is that really our problem anymore? That like some of our metadata might let you do something. So that's also a little bit of a wrinkle. So that communication process is maybe also part of what we need to figure out.
So yes, there's two parts. One is the, hey, like, is this actually an issue? Because I agree, like, there. And I think the challenge a little bit with that one is I think what AI lets you do is scale up these bad reports. Whereas before, if I'm the one who's having to write up this report, I probably think to myself, oh, is this really something I want to submit, spend the time and submit? But given that how easy AI has made it, and I think to tie into some of what John has mentioned there, which is something I'm also very interested in, is I think you can, I don't want to say it's an arms race, but it does sometimes feel like an arms race here, a little bit of, hey, if you're submitting a lot of AI generated slop, I can also use AI to filter out the slop as much as I can, which I think is valuable. And for what it's worth, I think this is the same way we've seen with just generally automated reporting, right? Where we can use spam filters and all sorts of other things to kind of filter out automated reports that just don't make sense, right? We use it ourselves. Somebody kind of fills out an issue and it's clearly spam. We have, reports that, we have things that can detect, yeah, this seems like somebody trying to sell the project a thing. What the heck? Let's close it. And not having to have a human even take a look at it. So I think that there's definitely areas there that I think I'm also interested in is like, it to some extent it is an arms race, and hey, can we use AI to also catch a lot of the silly ones as well? John.
So I'll extending the arms race commentary. I put in the chat the third category of things, which is more about a project which uses AI. It has some sort of wrapper around a model, and there's a vulnerability in the model itself. Say the model following the right set of instructions will tell you how to make some weapon of mass destruction. A literal arms race. Is that a problem with Holmes GPT or the Kusari CLI or something else that you're able to ask the right question or put the right thing in a GitHub issue or PR, and then that open source project or any project product then spews out this sort of response. And I think this is where tying this back to some of what Justin was saying, maybe a concrete thing for our guidance around self-assessments is how to leverage a threat model in responding to some of these things. How can you point to the documentation and say, actually, this is outside the scope of what we're concerned about. We don't care. Well, we care. You should not have root access to the file system, but if you do, that's outside the scope of what the project is going to solve. You should use basic Linux security things. Now, taking that back to the AI model vulnerabilities, if someone is able to break out of your system prompt somehow, that seems more like a vulnerability with your project itself. If you're not managing permissions and access, if you have an insecure MCP server, is that a problem with the MCP protocol? Is that a problem with what you're doing? It's probably not a problem with the model itself. And so I think that's maybe part of the guidance we could offer to folks is where are those boundaries? What is there a generic threat model around developing AI agents that we could work on and share with folks to help them better understand those sorts of security concerns.
I think one one great point in what John was saying that I think is uh, could maybe be like a high level point is explain whether you're trying to change the project's stated threat model or whether you're trying to exploit a threat within their threat model. Because I think that just at a very high level, those two things are very fundamentally different. And I've had many, I will say that I wouldn't say most by number, but most by how memorable they were to me. Of the things that I've done is tried to convince people that their threat model is wrong for their project. And I of course, believe that I was right in basically all of those cases. But even though I would say maybe half the time the project didn't agree, at least initially, but then like usually 5 years later, they've changed things. Um, but yeah, I think that's also that could be a great way, like a great, very concrete way to say, you know, if you're doing something within the threat model, then absolutely like that is reportable. If you're doing something that doesn't really seem to match that, then you really need to take a careful look at what you're reporting.
So I don't want to get too far off down a rabbit hole, but I do think that that also highlights a slightly tangential point, which I think is also still important, is a surprising few projects. Again, in CNCF, absolutely, lots of projects now have threat models, but just generally about open source, a lot of projects don't even define what their threat model is in any clear way, which I think is also sometimes a big challenge there. But yeah, I agree with that, and I also agree that like to your previous point, because it's something I've seen a lot of folks have reached out to us about, hey, um, if somebody has root access to the machine they're running this thing on, they can break this. It's like if they have root access, they don't need to break it. They can just and so I've seen way too many of those reports, and I would like to see less of them.
Perhaps something to re-explore next week, because I think we might have someone from Tag DevX join us to talk about why developers have trouble applying security best practices. And I wonder if that would be an opportunity to explore why is it difficult for projects to provide a threat model? Like, what is stopping them? Is it like a process thing? Are they not sure where to get started? Would they want to like leverage other people's work? Like, I'm sure there's lots of projects that have very, very similar capabilities, and there could be like overlap or collaboration there. So that made me think of that.
Yes, that would be awesome. So maybe my high level thoughts on the driving this to some actual like concrete action items. I don't feel like updating any of this documentation is like a sub project or a task that needs to be done as a like official, I don't know, I'm forgetting, I'm blanking on the names of all of the organizational red tape type things. I think for one, we should, for the sake of collaboration and transparency, I will write up some GitHub issues for updating each of these things with the specific types of content we would like to add or modify. But I think we probably could just asynchronously work on some of that and spend 15 minutes or so kind of reviewing in the weekly calls when we have time. Or if not, just reminding people to like, hey, take a look at the doc or the PR and throw some comments on there. Does anybody feel differently about that? Do they want to like well, for one, is that if anybody else wants to take this and run with it, I would be free to more than happy to let them do so. But also, if you want more structured sort of regular meetings or something else around this, I'm willing to listen to the thoughts or ideas. Also, if you agree with the idea of like this could just be a GitHub issue that we work through. Or I suppose the other option would be for folks that are in person at KubeCon in a couple of months, 6 weeks, whatever it is. We just sit down for an hour and hack this out. And I suppose maybe that's the fallback scenario. If we don't manage to push through and get all the work done on the GitHub issue within the next couple of weeks or month, then we just sit down in person and crank it out. Okay. See, hearing silence, I will take an action item to write up a couple, I don't know, 2 or 3 GitHub issues for each of these things that would need to be updated, and I will share the links in Slack.
That sounds good. Thanks, John. Anything else on this topic before we move on to the next? All right, next. Review other time zone meeting. I don't believe there was one since we last met. Was there a TOC meeting this week? Maybe I'll see. Brant, was there one?
No, it was a private TOC meeting this week.
Okay. So I guess we can move on to project updates. And the first one is supply chain insights. I don't see Evan on here. Is there anyone else who would like to give an update there?
Unless somebody else has information, there was no meeting this week. It's bi-weekly cadence, so I expect that we'll hear more updates next. Maybe not next week, depending on holidays. Sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brant. Security assessments. Any updates on security assessments?
Yes, that basically there hasn't been an update. The Kyverno folks are supposed to be going through and we gave them quite a lot of feedback on their document and are waiting for them to respond to it. It's been more than 2 weeks or around 2 weeks. So, but I think they're busy with some of the TOC asks right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Justin. Security controls. I can give an update there. We're still working on the guidance document for the contribute site that we want to PR, just doing last minute refinements. One place where we've made some progress, and we do have a meeting this week, is the security SLAM item. We created an initial Jamara compatible threat assessment guide that could be used by participants in the security SLAM to create their own threat catalog. So that is PR'd to the Eddie's repo for the security SLAM. And I don't think we have any other updates on that. MCP, the white paper. Any updates there?
Badly need you or someone else to come in and say the same things I've been saying. I think they're tired of hearing me saying it. I think me saying it isn't having quite the result. I still am not sure. I'm worried this is going to be the IAM paper 2.0 if we don't do this. So please, someone else show up to the meeting and just because now it's kind of like, oh, well, we found people that do work in practice that we will ask them what they think and then whatever, but we need to first make sure we have our 30 pages. Is everybody written their parts of this 30-page document? And I think that's feels to me a little backwards. But yeah.
So question.
I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not trying to like dump on the result. I want it to turn out well. I'm committed to try to help. I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is that just like there's just not enough expertise on the MCP side from your
My personal opinion is that the three things we need is we need to have something interesting to say. We need experts who know how to say it, and it needs to be clear to any audience. And I am not sure we have something different to say than what all the stated guidance is. And we definitely don't have like deep MCP experts doing this every day at the forefront who want to put out the document. What we have is a bunch of people who want to do a good job of putting together a document and have an idea that a document is needed and are trying to pull data from different places to put something together, which is okay. Like that's not to be underestimated, but it's not like it's a lot of let's do our research to figure out what to write by reading other people's writings, and not so much of like I have operational experience, so I know how to wade through what's happening. And I'm just a little concerned with that. I can help them tie it in for a good common audience. That's the part that I've volunteered to try to help with. Eddie,
When's the last time you spoke with them? Just
I think I was in the call Monday.
of this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible I'm misremembering and I was there last week, but I've been in the calls most weeks.
Yeah.
And they did say like the last time I spoke, oh, we now have people that we know we should talk to ask them their feedback on this. But I'm a little worried if you come to me and you say, hey, here's a 30-page document on doing software supply chain security, right? What do you think? I'm probably going to be like, well, yeah, these parts are okay. These parts need some work. And if then you go away and you make some tweaks, that doesn't necessarily make it good guidance. I feel like they really need the experts. They need to drag the experts into the process to make the document that they wish they had that conveys what they need, rather than something that passes the bar that the experts are tired of dealing with this long document.
Okay. The reason I ask is that I met with Satarupa on Thursday of last week, so few days ago, and she was saying a lot of the same things that you're saying right now. So I think that the feedback that you're saying now is being deeply considered at least from one of the authors. I think she's the lead author on that, if I understand correctly. And the my understanding following that session was that they're going to be going through a consolidation to not just strip down the length of the paper, but to also kind of identify the key themes so that way they can give a short they can hand off something small to potential expert contributors to ask to invite them in as opposed to handing them 30 pages. So that was my understanding leaving Thursday. So I'd be curious if yeah, kind of I might circle back with her just to for my own edification, but it sounded to me like a lot of your feedback was being deeply considered.
Thank you. Yeah, and she did mention she had spoken with you about it, and so I must have been this Monday that I was in the meeting. Sorry, I think Jen was next.
I was just going to say I reviewed the paper as it is, and I'm hoping to attend next Monday. My main issue is that it takes a really long time in the paper to figure out like what I'm trying to protect myself against. Like it's a lot of I think the issue is its structure. Like structurally it doesn't make sense. It's enumerating all of the auth mechanisms and different solutions there. And for me, I need it to be like, what does MCP introduce that I don't already know about API and cloud native security that I need to think about? And then what do I need to do to mitigate that? So I think that was my main feedback on the paper. And I can say that also on Monday. Like for me, as it stands, it wouldn't be like super useful to me as somebody
Yeah.
trying to build an MCP server.
And that's also part of what I identified that too when I looked at it, and that's part of what I was going to help them clean up, but I wanted them to finish shuffling stuff around. So yeah, but if you wanted to do that or want to help with that, then that's very welcome, Mike.
So I don't want to relitigate if you know I don't want to kind of go too deep down this rabbit hole. But again, like I think the thing that I'm worried about, just even hearing they want to fix it, the challenge I have a little bit is what I've always seen be a good white paper is there's a bunch of experts who want to talk about the thing. And then they come in and they say, hey, we're not experts in building white papers. Let's find some folks who can help us take all of our knowledge and this seems like the inverse of that of, hey, we feel like we need to talk about MCP, but we don't know how to because we're not experts in MCP. So let's see if we can kind of figure out a scope and then find experts who fit that scope. And the challenge I think you're going to have is like if you take any topic like that, you're going to run into the problem of if I'm an MCP expert, I'm like, what is this thing you're trying to pull me into? Like as opposed to, hey, we're looking for MCP experts. Let's kind of find folks first and just kind of go out and do that. Maybe you can do that, but generally it's usually like, hey, MCP experts being like, oh, we're seeing people really not talk about the security of this thing. So let's have some folks start to talk about, let's talk about the security of that thing. I'm just worried that this is just, even with a lot of the improvements being made here, it still feels like a fishing expedition of like, let's try and find people who'll be interested in talking about this topic, which is not how you incentivize people in open source to do that, because usually you would have the opposite of folks saying, I want to talk about this thing. What are the avenues I can talk about it?
Yeah, John.
I think there's a good opportunity here, maybe to kind of to Mike's point around motivation. There's some really pretty like relatively new CNCF projects around building MCP or agentic AI systems on top of Kubernetes, like K-Agent. I know Dapper has the Dapper AI agents, I think. I know, we've all worked with Lynn. She's pretty involved in the K-Agent stuff. I know that they probably have some of their own solutions around how to do authentication and authorization today, or they're thinking of about how to do it. And I think it would be a really good opportunity, I think, to integrate what we're seeing from CNCF projects and how they're trying to solve this problem with the recommendations for more generally people who are either going to use a framework like K-Agent or some other new and emerging framework. It might be an interesting collaboration opportunity.
It's a great idea. One that someone, Eddie, myself, Jen, can pass on to them. But yeah. Somehow I ended up facilitating this topic, but I'll stop now unless somebody has questions about it.
So I also just I'm curious. I don't know if there's a non-judgmental way of asking this question, but like, how did we end up at 30 pages already? I just looked at when I looked at it the last time, it was like one or two pages with sections to fill in. And I thought we were very explicit about the requirements of short white papers at the beginning of this.
There's different ways to do something. There's a way to have the experts that have something to say, and then you sit down and you say the thing, and then you flesh out enough to make it happen. And then there's the like, well, what should the table of contents look like? And what are the sections? And then everybody should have a section, and then everybody should write their section. And why don't we ask people to write their section? Kind of the top level project management standpoint. And since we did the latter, this how this project was run was with the latter, then everything ended up to be bigger than we might have expected. But it's not, if we had, I don't think we were upset that we had a 30 or 60 or however many page like software supply chain compromises catalog, because it was largely like you could read the first 5 pages and the rest was basically informational appendices that listed all the useful stuff out about a bunch of things. So it's like, I think the length thing is, I think what you're trying to say is, how do we end up with a document that seems to drone on a bit and isn't as tight and focused? And I agree with that we should have figured out exactly, these are the things that experts need to have said that haven't been said elsewhere, and then just refer people to other guides.
Yeah, I think another thing to highlight, in addition to what Justin just said, is that they're not submitting this for review yet. Like the document is still a working document, so the length is not reflective of what they intend the length to be.
Yeah, and I think everyone's heart is in the right place. Everyone is trying hard. This isn't like I think we just had a bad experience from a prior white paper that we're still hopefully going to get things fixed together with and stuff that we still want to see succeed. We want to see all of this succeed. We're just all trying to figure out the right way to do it. And I think we want to just find a way to shape that energy in a positive way, which I think means that we need some of the experts in there to help direct like things as they need to go. And I think that's what is missing a little here.
All right. I think that was a really great discussion. I think we have some maybe action items or next steps on that one. Anything else on MCP before we move to Security Slam? All right, Eddie, do you want to give an update on Security Slam stuff?
Yeah. Bum 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 bum. Didn't plan an update. I should have. So right now we're sitting on a blog approval from CNCF. It hasn't gone out yet, but it's like, yeah, cool. We'll get to it. So that approval has been sitting in the works. Might be out today, might be out tomorrow. I don't know. But we're 9 days out from when we all agreed we wanted to start the festivities. OpenSSF has been coordinating folks writing content. We have a few different articles already up. Jen's been working on Jamara content to support guidance around lightweight threat assessments. Evan is, I'm trying to help with that, but Evan is revitalizing the course that we have on project self-assessments. There's a few different knowledge resources that are getting baked right now. If folks want to continue or support or pick up anything or revive anything, the goal is that we're going to have on the securityslam.com, we'll have sort of a index of all these resources, and it'll just be up for the 30-day window. And if anybody wants to do like a microblog that's like, hey, this is super small, it's not supposed to stand the test of time, but I just want to put it up for 30 days to help the projects, that's also an option. we are looking for more people to just help create security hygiene related content that we can make available to projects and push it out. We've been so Stacy from OpenSF has been helping with a lot of that planning and coordination. I've been working with her on refining the badges. We decided not to include anything that's directly related to the CRA. Just was deemed out of scope. But the other badges are what we discussed on our last working session. I think a lot of folks were here for that. We're going to announce the final decision of that on the 20th, of exactly what those badges are. But if you want to contribute to that, then let me know. What we are for projects, we are going to have the plaques. So Sonatype's going to provide the plaques, still locking in the details of what the plaques are going to look like. But we'll have plaques for any projects that are registered and have completed at least one badge. And we'll give that to them at KubeCon. Then OpenSF is going to help us issue Credly badges for any participants. So anybody who helped a project complete one of these badges will themselves get a badge that they can put on LinkedIn. We're working on, the plan is that should I get the logistics figured out, there should be a web form where projects can list that they're looking for contribution. So this is kind of combining what we did last year, where Jen, your project was a recipient of public contributions. In previous years, we're just working directly with maintainers and not trying to coordinate external contributors. So assuming that we get the details sorted, logistics sorted for it, what we're going to have is a form that projects can list themselves as open to receiving PRs related to the Security Slam. And then we'll provide that information along with the badges and stuff. And then on the completion of each badge, projects will fill out a similar form, just like pop onto the website, say, we did this task for this project, and here's the people who contributed. And that data is what will go into Credly to send out the badges from LF on the long tail. Yeah, so overall, things are moving along nicely. I'm still open to contributions if anybody wants to give feedback on the actual goals themselves, or if anybody wants to support content creation to, write a blog, things like that. Or if you have content that you've already produced that you want to make available, or if you have a tool that assists people in the execution of these things, then yeah, as long as it's open source and free and works on the GitHub repos, things like that, then we can list that in the library as well. And that's really, it doesn't even have to, the project itself doesn't, the tool doesn't have to be open source, it just has to be free. Something that projects can use. If it's ready for projects to use and it helps achieve a badge, let me know and we'll include it in the resources. I think that's it.
Justin?
Are you mostly looking for projects that are not really sure what they should be doing and are going to like do those things? Or are you looking for projects like if Kubernetes came and said, we want to participate in this, or like in Toto or Tough or something like that, that's had a lot of security? Like what is your intended best audience?
Yeah. So Kubernetes sub projects we worked with in the past, right? We did the Kubernetes sub project one. That was the reason Puerco wanted to do that was to help new contributors get onboarded to sub projects as opposed to like the epic narrative of Kubernetes. The reason there that they were an audience in the past was they wanted those projects those sub projects to have more visibility. They wanted to find folks who were qualified to support those. Something that we've also seen, another audience that has been that has received value are folks who are trying to get their project logo to become more familiar. Meshery was one example of this. They're like, hey, we've got a really cool maintainer base. We've got a really cool product with a awesome core set of users, but it'd be nice to just get a little bit more publicity. My understanding of their motivation was like just a little bit more publicity, get the project logo out there a little bit more places, right? So that was one audience. And then similar to that, some folks wanted to have like show their security progress. They're like, we think we've already done a great job. So OpenFGA was an example of this. They came in and they're like, a couple years ago, they came in and they're like, hey, we've already done all those things. We just checked your stuff. We see that we've already completed it. All we had to do is add this documentation file and we're complete. Can we get badges? We're like, yeah, you're right in time. And we like printed off a plaque for them and they like found that it fulfilled a key project need. And then the last one is the last place that we created value. I don't know how framing wise, but we created value for Argo project, even though they're super established. Michael Crenshaw is all over the security championing of that project. But he hit me up like 2 years after their participation in one of them, maybe even longer, and he's like, "Hey, because we went through this super mundane activity of pinning all our dependencies in our CI pipelines, the TJ Actions thing was a breeze for us. It didn't disrupt us at all. And so projects that want to just like double check some best practices, things like that, could also gain benefit from it. Which makes the framing around this like I wish somebody who's better at marketing could help with that because it's like, okay, cool, who do we go talk to? I'm like, I don't know, everybody.
All right. Anything else in the security slam? That was a good update. All right. Triage of current issues is next. And I only have one up because I think everything else is an initiative. Did we need to talk about the here, I'll just share my screen because this issue, I think we left some action items on 1378 last week about the contribute site and migrating some of the documentation over. Maybe Brant, did you have any updates there? I think you were kind of working through that perhaps.
No updates as of yet. We're still just kind of mapping across the multiple PRs. And then as far as the blog, that's kind of still sitting in a very rough state. And so I need to refine that and get that out for at least the leads and the community to review if we'd like, and then go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. I don't think, looking here, I don't see any other issues that we could triage. Next is general stand-up and check-ins from partner groups. Does anyone have anything to say on that topic? All right, moving on. The next community demo, I think it's possible. I don't know that we framed it exactly as a demo, but I think it's possible we might have the folks from Tag DevX join us next week to talk about the initiative that they have. So maybe that would fill a community demo slot. And then I don't think we have any other scheduled. I think we're kind of running out there for this year. So maybe we can.
I'd like to propose a debate topic. I can probably come up with some demo things. I'd like to have a debate about whether the US government no longer requiring government agencies to buy software with SBOMs is a positive or negative thing from a security standpoint. And I would be happy to take the point of not requiring SBOMs anymore is a positive thing from a security standpoint, which is, I think, the more controversial take.
I think Mike has to play the opposite side of that, don't you, Mike?
It's funny you bring that up. I am like on the side here, I was typing with somebody about this sort of thing. And again, I don't want to like preempt this debate, but one of the things that I was talking to somebody about was like most folks are still requiring SBOMs, but all this does is start to like plant the seed of like where everybody can go off in their own direction now. And that was the whole thing that original sort of EO was trying to sort of avoid, was everybody just requiring different ways to sort of acquire software for the government. It was like, hey, what can we do to consolidate? Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's just funny that you brought that up now, because I'm like, we've been talking to folks who are like, oh, no, we still require SBOMs, but technically we don't need to, but we still need to do something.
I don't have
I
a
don't
glove.
know if
I
like
was gonna
folks
throw
like
a
Brant
glove down.
are dealing with that, but
I was going to throw a glove down, but I didn't bring my gloves. It's a little too warm in New York today. But you're on. Like let's do this for one of these future meetings and have a good time with it.
That sounds like a good one. Is anyone signing up to moderate right now, or will we figure that out later?
I could moderate that. That could be fun.
Cool.
When you started out with government, I thought you were gonna propose a community demo or topic on like personal protection from surveillance or something like that. Would be not maybe cloud native, but it's been a hot topic lately.
Is that
There-
possible anymore?
I know the Ring commercial from the Super Bowl got a lot of people
Yeah.
chatting.
Yeah.
yeah, between that and what was that? Was it Flock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flock Data compiles Ring and a bunch of others and sells it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know that's. Yeah, I would love to hear more on that, John. Please, please.
Ca- If we were to have a conversation about that, would folks feel that's appropriate within the scope of this meeting? If we present it in a non-political, um, Mike?
So my 2 cents is I do think that there is an angle around how do we as a cloud native security community incentivize some of the things that we're building and help fostering to be used in ways that we believe are in line with CNCF's own principles and code of conduct and whatnot. Because I do know, like, again, you're not going to be able to stop. I am sure there are very many bad actors who are currently have a lab with Kubernetes running on it, right? But there is clearly, things I think that is there are definitely things here of like, oh, there is probably technology I have had my hands in that is being used in ways that I feel like is not in the spirit of, CNCF's principles, OpenSSF's principles, and just sort of generally, I don't want to go too deep down the obviously political rabbit hole, but, things that like, hey, it turns out a lot of these observability tools and whatnot are being used to also provide signals and whatever to just sort of mass surveillance. And it's like, hey, how do we as a community sort of again feel about that, especially given that I think even regardless of where you land on it, there is stuff like protestware and similar sorts of things that are coming up of projects saying, hey, I noticed my open source project is being used by a particular organization in a certain way and I don't align with it. And so I am either purposefully, doing something to compromise my own application, which is potentially a security, issue, or I'm otherwise sort of saying, I'm stepping away from this project because I feel like it's being used in a way that is not in line with my values. So I do think that there's something there, but I agree that it's like keep it in line with what we're doing here in cloud native and that sort of stuff.
I think you raised a good breadth of possible discussion points from things like basics, like don't expose your metrics of your applications to the public internet. Like that would be a bad thing. That's like a general security concern to how do you approach licensing of open source projects. So I'll think about that one for a little while. If anyone else has strong opinions.
Perhaps the debate is uh, personal personal security and privacy are not relevant to open source security debate. Then you can keep it on topic while going in to figure out how much we should discuss that.
All right, sounds like we have some exciting demos and presentations coming up. That's the end of our agenda. So I think we're done with 2 minutes to spare. So thanks everyone for joining.
Bye-bye. See you later.
Thanks for hosting. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.